and this panel is the Mahabharata Culture, Heritage, Travel and Adaptation Part 1. This session will be chaired by Dr. Subarno Chatterjee, Associate Professor, Department of English, University of Delhi. And we have three presenters here. Dr. Subarno will introduce the presenters.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce this panel. We have, and forgive me if my pronunciations are off, Ain Herdiani, who is at the Department of Dance, the Performing Arts faculty at the Institute of Indonesian Art and Culture in Bandung in Indonesia. Next, Galia Petkova, who is a visiting research fellow at the International Research Center for Japanese Studies in Kyoto. And finally, Retno Dwi Marwati, who is also at the theater department, the Institute of Indonesian Art and Culture in Bandung. So without further ado, I request AN to please begin her presentation.
Thank you. I'm happy to stand here because this is the first time to India, to New Delhi. And thank you very much to Dr. Anjana and Prof. Iwan, which invite me and Retno to join in the conference. I would like to explain about the Mahabharata epic in the existence of the dance in Indonesia. In the beginning of the century, in Indonesia, especially in Java and Bali, there is a new process of assimilation and adaptation toward India culture, which gives big influence and change to Indonesian culture. Among others is on arts. The life of dance in Indonesia, which initially has ritual function, with simple movement and music, becomes more various. The acculturation between local dance and dances from India, which also have ritual function, offer varieties to Indonesian dances. The traces of dances on the time can be seen on the reliefs of temples such as on Borobudur or other holy construction and copper slabs. The reliefs of Hindu Buddha are so inherent in Indonesia that they can be seen on the temples and India literary arts, such as the story of Mahabharata. Many names of the temples are taken from the character in Mahabharata, among others, Bhima Temple, Puntadewa Temple, Srikandi Temple, Sumbadra Temple, and Semar Temple. This is an example for the relief in Borobudur. The reliefs show the movement which have almost the same pattern with the Indias. There are movement and of hands, arms, finger, feet, and any other parts of the body which are orderly and believed to have meanings. Initially, Mahabharata is only used in later puppet with some change on the story. In Indonesia, a lot of dance. Each area has a word of its dance. One of them are kind of dance influenced by India culture. The life of dancing in Indonesia also faces its adaptation and assimilation between Indonesia dance and India's. The influence of India enriches and varieties Indonesia dance movements. It enables the creator to have new forms of movement with Indonesia style. There is integration between the element of India dance movement with the dance in each Indonesia region. In the kingdom era on the 18th century, there was a dance emergence in Java functioning. Both are as ritual and entertainment called wayang wong or dance drama. Wayang Wong is a personification of wayang kulit, or shadow, or leather puppet. The performers of Wayang Wong are human, which is different from shadow puppet, whose actors are hidden. It is also developed in West Java, Wayang Wong with mask and without mask. This is the example for shadow puppet. And this is example for wood puppet. In West Java, we have a wood puppet. The performance, this is example for performance of Wayang Wong in Yogyakarta Village in 1926. This story about the death of Winatak Waca in the Mintaraga story. And the same example, the performance of Wayang Wong in Yogyakarta Village in 1976. And then this is the story, the same story, but they perform with Masdan. And then the perform Wayang Wong in Yogyakarta Village in 1989. The same story about the Mintaraga story, or Arjuna was imprisoned. And now Mintaraga story is always in performance. This is the example for they will performance in April, in 26 April, yeah. And now the Mahabharata story to be accurate, the choreographer dislike the death of Bhisma. This is the new creation about the Mahabharata story. This is the date of Bhima, but it's the creation. This is the Subhadra film, Subhadra dance. The character of the woman in, this is the Gatot Kaca Sakipu. Gatot Kaca Sakipu, the story about the Gatot Kaca war with the Naga Percona. Maybe that different song. Example for the character of Subhadra. In Sundanese dance, now is very popular about the many character in the dance. Maybe this is a Subhadra. Subhadra is a wife of Arjuna. We have this dance, and after now, the Subhadra dance is learning about us in my campus. And in West Central Java, the Gatot Kaca was performing in the marriage celebrate. After now, yeah, this is very interesting. Gatot Kaca Gandrung, like the lovely Gatot Kaca, falling love, Gatot Kaca falling love to Subhadra. Maaf, I'm sorry, the Pergiwa. The last example, this is the Sri Kandi Mustakaweni. Sri Kandi were with Mustakaweni. I think it's enough. I will give you the conclusion. The Mahabharata, the story of Mahabharata, to be a shadow puppet and wood puppet in Indonesia. And now, the plot of the puppet shadow, the Wayang Wong human puppet or human puppet. That is, the Wayang Wong is a transformation about the shadow puppet. And then, to be a tari wayang or puppet dance. That is the develop about the Wayang Wong. Mahabharata story is still live and used either in the performance or the source of the creating new dance work. And the Mahabharata story focus in this writing are still maintained, although there are some changes throughout the adaptation. Mahabharata story still inspires the creator to create their works. Certain popular characters among the people such as Gatot Kaca, Sri Kandi, Arjuna, and so on. And until now, wayang dance driven from Mahabharata is learned in arts institution in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
So very briefly about myself, my background is in Japanese and gender studies. It's been like almost 20 years I've been doing research in traditional Japanese theater, and 10 years since I got involved with Indonesian performance. In fact, today's topic, I was seriously considering it as a topic of my dissertation, but it would have complicated so much the process, so I had to give up. And when I saw the announcement of the conference, it was on Association of Asian Performance website, I realized that the time to start writing this paper has come. So this is still a work in the very beginning. I've just sat down and wrapped up all my ideas about Balinese and Japanese performance. And since what I'm going to talk about originates in India, so I still have looked only at this particular story that is included in Mahabharata. And I haven't found any information if this story is also performed in Indian theater, and I would be really, really grateful if you give me any kind of feedback. You can like write down my email and send me information anytime. So this presentation is actually very long, so I'm going to rush through the first slides. So we know that Mahabharata has influenced Asian performing arts. my topic today is not about the main story, which has influenced mostly South Asia and Southeast Asia, but stories such like the legend of Shringa, if I pronounce it properly, which are, this particular narrative is included in Mahabharata. It derives from the Hindu-Buddhist mythology, and it has become a very, very popular performance in Japan. I assume you are familiar with the legend, so are you? So I'm not going to read, because I've written very detailed about the legend. So this is a holy man with the horn of a deer, supernatural abilities. He has never seen human beings other than his father, lives in isolation, and he is seduced because there is a disaster. And there are two outcomes of the scene of the seduction. So he either restores harmony and marries the woman, as is the story narrated in Mahabharata, or he loses his powers, which restores the harmony because it was in fact his power that was bringing the disaster. So in short, this is a story about drought, sexuality, fertility, abstinence, and lust. It's about performance, the body. It's about gender and power as well. So the paper structure would be first looking at the Indian legends, the Hindu and the Buddhist versions, then the Japanese. In Japan, it's been performed as a no drama and as kabuki. And when I was in Bali, I came across a very popular and similar performance. It's called Chalona Rang. It's about a widow. She's powerful in black magic, and the similarities with the story in Mahabharata are so much that I would like to look at the possible influence of Mahabharata, which is of course impossible to prove, but there are too many similarities not to pay attention to the story. So what I'm using as a theory in my work in general is like gender, body, power, and performance. So the performance is central to the formation of culture, and I look at performance in the very broad term of the meaning of the term as used in performance studies. And theater, accordingly, is a form of representation that's ideological, that produces specific meanings, cultural meanings. I'm skipping this one. So the story of Rishashringa is one of the several stories that are considered work in their own. It's included in the third book, the Book of Forests. So this book relates the 12-year pilgrimage of the Pandavas in the forest, and so it's filled with a lot of stories about ethics and gods and legends. And Rishashringa itself is included in the pilgrimage parva, and it's taught in like 4 sections out of the nearly 80 sections of the parva. So while Arjuna is away meditating and looking for the secret weapons, Yudhishthira meets sage Lomasa at this Risala mountain, and where the ashram of Rishashringa and his father was. So this is a story within the story. Again, Lomasa just makes a brief introduction to the story, and he focuses on the son, saying that he's of passions under control, which is actually the opposite to the development of the story, because the boy simply forgets about everything after seeing the woman. So he forced Indra to cause rain. He was born behind all this. And so what is interesting is that Yudhishthira wants to know more. He asks all these questions that the listeners of the story would ask to clarify the story, and then Lumada proceeds with the account. So the father himself first is related the way the child was born, that there is differences here with Ramayana, and at the same time the land of Arga, which is, I've mistyped here and wrote, and it's also mistyped in the abstract, so, and it could be only a Brahmin with perfect chastity could help the kingdom. So from here, the story gets really interesting. So the king and the ministers, they gather together and they wonder what to do, and they decide to send the courtesans, which, as far as I understand, is also means women, not necessarily prostitutes in the culture, right? Yeah. So all of them refuse because they are afraid of being cursed, and it's only an old woman who agrees to the task, and what she does is like she literally stages a performance. She creates this artificial floating hermitage, fills it with all kind of sweets, drinks, beautiful women, and then she sends her daughter when the boy remains alone, and the daughter, in a way, seduces him. It's like first she entices him, then she leaves, the father comes back, he finds out what happened, and on the next day, she comes back and takes the boy, and everything is restored. So the center of the story is this, the seducing scene. It has remained the center of the narrative and the performance in the Japanese versions as well. Much of the story is taken up by accounts of the feelings of the young man. He becomes aware for the first time of a woman. His feelings, however, are not revealed directly. Like, he tells how he felt in his account to his father of what has happened. And so what is important point from a gender perspective as well, like she presents herself as a hermit, a man like himself. The English translation refers to the female character as he. I am curious how it would be in the original or the Indian versions, if the language makes this distinction. And what is very impressive about this scene, that it's a very, very beautiful poetic language. Like the scene is the sensuality and the enticement of the scene, the physical touch of bodies and mouths, all this like is very beautifully described in language. And this makes it, in fact, a very suitable scene for performance. So the story ends with happy ending for everyone, for the kingdom, for the king, for the daughter, the son-in-law, for the father. And what is really impressive is that in this story, all powers that were of conflicting nature or could have been, so this is the rishi, that's the spiritual, ascetic male power. The female power, the women that are in a way aligned with sensuality and physicality, and also the actual power of the gods and the rishi who curse the kingdom. So all these powers, they reach balance and peace in the end of the story. So I wonder to what extent, I mean, this is one of the ideas of Mahabharata, but for me it would be interesting to explore also these side stories that are so numerous in Mahabharata and how they were included in the narrative to reinforce the central meaning, the key message of the text. I'm saying this because when I read, after being so familiar with the Japanese performance. When I read the original in Mahabharata, I was really surprised by the happy ending. So the father blesses them, tells his son to go back when a son is born, and this happens, but he goes back with his wife. And being a feminist scholar, I cannot miss the opportunity to point out that these kind of examples, like Santa obediently waits upon him as the star Rohini waits upon the moon, and there are a lot more examples of virtuous women, like serving their husbands, which in a way is nothing else but enculturating of these patriarchal values in women. And at the end, Lumasa tells Yudhishthira, so you perform your ablution and your desire would be fulfilled. In a way, the desire to restore power and harmony. I haven't been able to find many visual materials. This is an illustration from the mid-17th century. There are more illustrations of this scene in Ramayana, and what makes impression is like while in the original the female character is only one, here in the subsequent depictions there are always a lot of women depicted, probably as a way to underline the sensuality of the scene. There's a lot of variations. There is a very interesting variation in Ramayana itself, for which I don't have time. And here in the other variation, there is already this conflicting powers of female seductive and deceptive and versus male who is deceived and spiritual. The Buddhist versions that are actually the key versions through which the story goes to Japan. So here it's more or less the same. Instead of Indra getting mad and worried about the ascetic powers, it's Shaka. And here we don't have happy ending. So she seduces him, she leaves, they don't marry. He restores his powers, but the main message of the text as used in Buddhist and the Buddhist cultural ideology is that like for everyone who cannot follow the teachings of Buddha and is weak and could be tempted, so this is what happens to you. So there is a moral lesson here to be learned. So the Japanese versions, they are based on the Buddhist stories. Overall, all versions focus on the ascetic power of the hermit. It could be either positive, like in Mahabharata, or destructive, like in the Japanese versions. In both cases, the hermit is seduced, and if it's destructive, it actually can be defeated as well by seduction. There is alignment with the female body and woman, but overall, the female intervention is not perceived as negative because it helps the community. And what is interesting to me, at least, is that in the Japanese versions, Buddha is no longer represented as jealous because this text, in fact, is already part of the discourse that affirms Buddhism. The no drama Ikkaku Sennin was based on this setsuwa that are all kind of legends. Most of them came from the continent. It's actually this legend. Ikkaku means Rishashringa in Japan, one horn, and it is included in a book with Indian tales. So everyone in Japan knows that this most loved Japanese performance has come from India. The Japanese version in No, it takes place in India, in fact. So there is the same, there is drought. However, Ikkaku Sennin, he is an entirely selfish and negative character. So he has captured the dragon gods In Japan, they are called naga. That's why I've included naga in the title. And because he gets mad while like jumping all over clouds, he slips because it had rained too much and gets wet. And he said, "Oh no, I can't take all this." So he captures the dragon gods. The king sends his minister and Madame Senda. It's translated in Japanese. It is in English. In Japanese, she is like Senda Fujin. Fujin in contemporary Japanese means a wife. So probably the meaning in classical Japanese was different, but she's not a courtesan. She's not also a young girl as the previous versions. She dances, they pour him sake, so he collapses, and the dragon gods escape. And they perform a dance. Every no play ends with a dance, which is like more rhythmical and dynamic than the previous content. So this is Ikkaku Sennin. No uses very little props. Like usually the stage is bare, and the audience have to imagine what is happening through the narration of the character and the dance, and through the singing of the choir. The two dragon gods, this is the cave where he has imprisoned them. So the dragon gods are played by child actors. So they're inside and they appear at the end of the performance. This is the dance of Senda Fujin in front of Ikkaku Sennin. And this is the final scene when the two child actors engage in a fight with the hermit. This is the mask that's used in No. It's used only for this row because of the horn. So the play is written at the end of the beginning of the 16th century. The author is quite specific and different from the other No playwrights because he composed more popular plays. This time period is probably the only time period when No stops being the performing arts of the samurai aristocracy. So it spreads out among the common people. And this is the time when a lot of legends and this kind of more dynamic plays were included in the repertory. So that's why there's more elaborate sets and the greater dramatic tension. And because it's very Japanese story in a way. The community is harmed and like through again, wit and seduction, the harmony is restored. It's also a very spectacular place, and it has contributed to the further popularity of a narrative that's already been very popular. It's one of the first, next dramatic form that develops in Japan, it's kabuki theater from like the end of the 17th century until the beginning of the 20th century is the most popular form of urban theater. So this narrative is one of the first plays that is staged, but here we go away with the horn, and it's called Narukami, the thunder god. It's again one of the most popular plays. So both the kabuki and the No version has been performed for centuries on the Japanese stage. And here, the gracious dance of Senda is replaced by a really long seduction scene. The character is princess now. She's Daema with long sleeves. And so I forgot to say, because it's so natural to me, that in both theaters, it's all male theater. So all the roles are performed by male. This scene is charged again with eroticism, and it's a way going back to the original in Mahabharata. There is also a lot of humor and explicit mocking of the hypocritical Buddhist clergy. During this period, Japan is isolated from the rest of the world. It's like 2 centuries of peace, and it develops this urban culture, like with a lot of playfulness, like intertextual connections between different narratives, and a focus on sexuality and eroticism that has been perceived as a sort of resistance to the samurai, to the strict samurai regime imposed by the government. And at the end of the kabuki version, so the wizard, he's angered and he turns himself into a thunder god, hence the title of the play. So this is another important scene. So there are 2, the seduction and the end. So to the left is like the seduction scene, while in No the character is a little bit old and ugly. In the kabuki versions, at least in Edo period, it was the most popular and handsome male and female role actors who performed these 2 roles. And this is what I was referring to. The long sleeves of the princess, it also means that she's not married. Only unmarried girls wear those kind of. And here it's, so at the end, the character, the male character is like the thunder god to the right on the poster. This is a video of the seduction scene which I cannot play. I don't know why. I'll try again after we finish while there's the questions. It's, no. It's like literally the female impersonator, the female character with her body seduces the male character. She's saying like, I don't feel well, and he massages her, and I'll try to play it because it's interesting. So this is a depiction of Narukami at the end of the play, when he turns into a thunder god. And in kabuki, it's considered nowadays that the male role specialists are in the center of the performance, and accordingly the male characters as well. But during this period I'm talking about, it's called Edo period, 16th and 19th century, kabuki produced a female version of almost all popular male characters, and this is what I've been engaged with as research in recent years. And the female Narukami is the first female version of a male character in kabuki. It's in fact produced some 10 years after the male original, while all other female versions were produced half a century later, for instance. So this is in fact like female Risha Shringa. This is the exit of the actor at the end. And like having been so familiar with this so much loved narrative of Narukami, it was inevitable not to get impressed by this performance of Chalonarang in Bali. So it's a dance drama in overall, but I would rather define it as a very complex and multi-level performance, because it includes all the genres typical of the Balinese performance. There is a dance, both male and female. There is a traditional and more modern patterns of dance. There is also the singing, the so-called arja, which is translated as Balinese opera, gamelan, of course. There is a lot of dialogue. It's dramatic, but it's also a lot of comical sketches. And there is even a playing out of a funeral ritual in the middle of the performance. There is a lot of trance. At the end, both audience and main performers get into trance. And the kris wielding, and there is also barong that defeats. So there is only no shadow puppet theater But since they improvise all the time, I would expect them to include it. But there is a special Chalonarang Wayang Kulit performance that is considered extremely sacred. And the Dalang who can perform it has to have special training and special powers. And unfortunately, it has not been performed very often recently because the community has to commission it. If they feel threatened by like black magic, they commission it to be staged. The drama features a significant number of characters. It combines supernatural and everyday life. And it is performed on a special occasion. Like it could be performed within an art festival, like the Bali Art Festival in June, but it's usually performed on the third day of the temple festival, Pura Dalam, that's dedicated to the dam. It's very long. It's like starts from 7 o'clock and it could last until 5 o'clock. No one leaves because there is a superstition that this would bring back luck. The end is the culmination, and it's a highly ritualistic but also highly entertaining performance, that one of the many that bring the Balinese community together. Very shortly, this is the story. So Chalonarang is a widow. As we know, the status of the widow is not traditionally perceived as positive. So this is the female lacking male power and balance. She has a daughter, nobody wants to marry her, so she gets angry, she causes disease, she's held by her mistress, it's Ragda, who comes out at the end of the performance, but also by Durga. And the king asks a holy man for help. He sends his young and handsome disciple to marry the daughter and steals her magic book. So Chalonarang becomes powerless. In some variation of the performance, the daughter kills her husband for doing this. Chalonarang is furious, invokes Ragda, and Ragda at the end fights with the Barong. I don't know if you are familiar with this performance. So the story derives from the Javanese and Balinese folklore from the 10th, 12th century, and this is the same time the legend of Rishashringa has been transmitted to Japan. It does not clearly originate in the legend, but there are so many similarities, and the influence of Mahabharata that is so strong on Javanese and Balinese Hindu culture poses these interesting questions about the similarities that I think need to be explored. So this is the eternal theme of communities' disaster and restoring of the well-being, and the characters are similar, but it's inverted gender-wise. So the evil character here is a female, and in fact the whole performance is fairly misogynistic. The evil female characters are performed by men only, again with a special power, because it's believed that women don't have the strength to embody such a powerful role. Okay, this is the same. So I will end with some visual representations. So to the left is Chalonarang. It's again like male actors. To the right is Ragda at the end of the performance, like when the performer gets in trance and fights with the Barong. Here it's an interesting representation showing the contrasting femininities being embodied on the stage. The widow and her beautiful daughter. And recently the role has finally been claimed by female performers. It's still very rare. This one was last year at, of course, a conference on feminism. It's not very, the Balinese do not perceive very well when women performed the role. There was even an all-female troupe performing Chelonarang, but it did not last long. These are the puppets used, and this is the last video of the fight between Barong and Ragda, which I also cannot play. Thank you.
Mahabharata, the story sought on Indonesian theater. Maybe I hope to complete it about Mahabharata in Indonesia. Okay, that is Indian culture influence in Indonesia. Indian culture influence are religion, social, political, language, and art. The most significant influence seen first until 16th century is spreading of Hindu Buddha. The social aspect stimulates the presence of social strata or class system that comprising clergymen, priests or Brahman, knight or Kshatriya, and citizen race. The political aspect, it also influences kingdom system. That's legitimated by God's king concept. In Indonesia, we have God king's concept. That is a king is a reincarnation god or dewa. So all mandates from the king is just the same as a god's order. The introduction of Palawa letters and Sanskrit language incites Indonesian people to adapt them into their local language. The art influence are literary art with Mahabharata and Ramayana epic. Fine art in the form temple reliefs and sculpture art. In the performing art, we have the musical, dance, and theater. And the architecture art, which introduced temple building. This my focus is performing art. In performing art, some most movements are inspired by picture on the temple reliefs and Natya Sastra, which is developed especially in the palace in Yogyakarta and Surakarta. The musical instrument and how to play them are also taken from the temple relief and Natya Sastra, such as gong, kendang, or drum, maybe in India mridanga, kecapi or sitar, trumpet, kecrek or cymbal, bonang and saron, suling, flute or bangsing. In dance, we have dance figures, example from Miss A.N. and dance drama. In the form of the theater, is a combine between the dance, epic narration, accompanied by gamelan orchestra. The genre of performance based on those two epics is wayang. The performance is divided into puppet theater and human theater. Puppet theater consists of wayang kulit or shadow puppet in Jawa, Bali, and Sunda, and wooden puppet wayang golek in Sundanese, West Java. And the human theater develops into form of dance drama in Sunda and Jawa, Sendratari in Bali, wayang wong in Yogyakarta, wayang orang in Surakarta and Sunda, West Java, wayang topeng from Central Java, sandiwara from West Java, langendrian from Java, and wayang gong from Kalimantan Timur as Borneo. Why Mahabharata most famous in Indonesia? We have 4 reasons for that. The reasons are, first, having more complete story with 8 parwa, which can be adjusted to the teaching on nationhood, social, and ritual life. Maybe in India have 18 parwa or more than 100 parwa. In Indonesia, just 8 parwa. Javanese king consider descendant of Parikesit, Arjuna's grandson. Javanese people consider that Indian is my ancestor. The king of Java believed that the concept of king gods have legitimate strength by the then strengthened it by legitimizing the concept of God King. This belief derives new stories outside the real plot wheel Wayang Purwa, telling about Pandavas. In Javanese, in Indonesia, we believe that Pandava is our ancestor. Mahabharata story is then adapted into Indonesian culture with indigenous culture. For example, by adding Punakawan story bridging between the common people with their king. Drupadi, who has 5 husbands in India, but in Indonesia only become Yudhishthira's wife. The emergence of story about a new knight from Arjuna's marriage with a hermitage girl stimulating a pattern of finding father. The knight from that kind of marriage is given a first name Bambang. In Indonesia, if have first name Bambang, it's a Satria. In Indonesian, woman figures have an important role. Maybe it's different with India, like Sri Kandi, Sumbadra, Mustakaweni, etc. But I asked Mr. Subarno, you know about Mustakaweni? No, it's just Indonesian stories. Now, traditional theater position. The condition of tradition theater reaches its peak season since middle of 19th century to the end of 20th century. That had achieved golden ages at half of century, 1930 until 1985, where more than 300 groups spread it in Java and other islands. But it is almost extinct nowadays. The other ways to survive is a divide transfer media, so there is still theater which can perform in the radio on television. For the existing, some group there are still maintaining their activities in their theater because of their love, like Wayang Orang Barata, Wayang Orang Sekar Budaya Nusantara, Wayang Orang Swarga Loka, or being subsidized by the government, like Wayang Orang Sriwedari, Miss Cici, and Wayang Orang Taman Purawisata. Okay, now it's in theater modern in Indonesia. The performance of Wayang Wong for the king inauguration is still conducted around. The performance of Wayang Wong for the king inauguration is still conducted around the palace for wedding or birthday celebration. The theater which still exists and become the people favorite are shadow play and wooden puppet with many famous dalang. Until now, shadow puppet and wooden puppet most popular in Indonesia. The tradition theater, which is the developed in the past, inspires the group of theater modern is theater coma, to write plays and perform based on wayang. There are 9 out of 10 plays based on Mahabharata, and only 1 play based on Ramayana. The stories chosen are carangan plays, adjusted to the socio-politic condition of the nation and the country. Carangan plays like in Indonesian indigenous. The performance aims to revive the people awareness toward their surrounding and then offer alternative solution for problems based on local wisdom of Indonesian people. Thus, it drives the present of ethnopedagogic. The wayang topeng is dance drama with a mask without dialogue, and the story told by narrator. That is wayang wong. Wayang wong is a theater performance using complete elements such as dialogue, dance, acting, music, setting, and property. This performance initially begins from the palace, but after the permission of Mangkunegara V, it becomes a people performance. In fact, it turned into proscenium stage. That is punakawan, like in black custom, is a Semar family. That's punakawan is humorous and very interesting to performance. It's an example from for technology in transfer of media. That a model of finding father, it's Arjuna's son. it's my presentation. Thank you very much.